listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma, and I'm your host, Trish Close. David Page back on the podcast today. I've interviewed this very smart, fascinating human a couple of times on Hungry for More, episode 133, if you want to go take a listen. David is the former executive producer and creator of a little show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Not sure if you've heard of it. He's also author of Food Americana, but maybe my favorite thing about him, he's a former crotchety newsie just like me. So we have a lot in common. We love to find stories, interesting stories, and share them with other people. David is drawn to those small food creators, those passionate folks who are doing it for all of the right reasons. The family-run, mom-and-pop joints, places you've never heard of, seeking those out, finding them, finding the stories, and then sharing them with us. He has a new project, a podcast, Culinary Characters Unlocked. We talk about where this idea came from, why he wanted to do a podcast, and then who is going to be on his show. Some big deal foodies, y'all. Big deal. I'm so excited to listen and watch this podcast. David is very funny, real, honest, and because he's been telling stories for such a long time, he's got a few stories of his own. Here's David Page. David, can you give me a little mic check?
Mic check, mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We are good to go.
Or as we used to do in the old days of radio, when someone asked for that, you did this. And confused the shit out of the editor because he thought the tape was going backwards.
Really?
Yeah, you know what it was? It was when we were doing single system film. And you'd record an audio track to go under B-roll. Only if the editor would be going both ways on the bench and couldn't figure it out.
That's genius. So when I was in news, they'd say, "Hey Trish, can you do a mic check?" And I would just do this.
Oh yeah, of course, yes.
Move my mouth, say nothing. It would drive. They're like, "Don't do that." I loved it. Well, I thought it was hysterical.
That's one of the things. It's one of the great real life moments from broadcast news. The movie. Yeah. When they're gonna do the special, and she's talking to him, and he looks up. He says, "Just kidding with you."
Yeah, I love it. I haven't done a podcast interview in about a month. I took July off, so who knows what's gonna happen today?
Hey, listen, it's fine.
Welcome back, David Page.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you back on the podcast. You are so interesting. I always get something from our talks, but you have a new project that we're going to talk about. But first, let me back up a little bit. Former executive producer, creator of a little show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. I don't know if any of my listeners have heard of it.
Yeah.
Also, you're an author, Food Americana.
I am.
And what I dig about you the most is that you love you love food in all forms, right? So 10-course, super fancy, little tiny bites and nibbles of the fanciest food on the planet, but you also love a good old-fashioned cheeseburger in a styrofoam container.
Damn straight. In fact, the other day, my best friend who now lives in Michigan was visiting, and around 11 a.m. we looked at each other and said cheesesteak, and got in the car and drove 90 miles to Philadelphia. The way you got to.
My heart.
And by the way, cheesesteaks are not necessarily the best food available in Philadelphia, but they are stereotypical. So.
But also, sometimes you just get a hankering for that thing, right? That thing.
Gotta have it. I've been going through a big birria phase. The Mexican spicy.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I first had in Mexico years ago. We were driving down, a nothing road on the way. We were shooting something about a little small family-owned tequila distillery. We're driving down the road and we see this kind of a shack that we think might be a restaurant. So we stop. And yes, technically it's a restaurant owned by a woman, maybe her whole family. And the menu was whatever they're making that day. And they were making birria with goat. And it was incredible. Just incredible. So I was ahead of the curve on that one.
Yeah. Isn't goat, that's the classic meat, right, for birria?
Well, it's the classic meat in central Mexico. But just as, tortillas differ in different parts of the country, the corn in much of the country, but flour up north.
Right.
when birria migrated from central Mexico to Tijuana, of all places, it turned into beef. And that was the version that crossed the border into Southern Cal.
Yeah.
So the birria that is now having its moment, I would assume in most places, certainly every place I've seen it in the States, is beef.
Right. A little bit more acceptable, I think, for some Americans, right? Like we'll
Yeah,
take
but
the
you know,
beef.
so many cultures do such great stuff with goat.
I
The
know.
Mexican burrito, which is goat in a tomato sauce, is fantastic. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, you say to folks, "How about some goat?" And it's like, well, it's like cultures that eat rabbit, but we think of rabbit as the Easter bunny.
Right,
So
right. That's why you just feed them. Don't say anything. Just say, eat this. You'll like it. I
yeah,
promise.
well, you know, there was a dish my grandmother used to make that I thought was great until one day I asked her what it was. She told me it was brains. I never ate it again. Now, as a kid, I would
Right.
probably try it today, but you know.
Right, right. So, also, what I love about you is that you're, if I hope I'm safe to say this, like me, a former crotchety newsie.
Oh, I'm a lapsed newsie. Except I sit in my living room at I'm on the East Coast, so it's 6:30. I don't know,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I sit in my living room at 6:30, and then as I replay whatever broadcast I didn't watch live, and I throw my shoes at the screen
Yeah.
because grammar standards and other things have fallen since.
Delivery.
Yeah.
Delivery. What is going on with delivery right now?
Well, tell me, first of all, you can't use a complete verb. Secondly, everything has to start with tonight, even if the story came out 10 hours ago. Yeah, don't
Right.
give me. Yeah. Although I said to my wife, I was watching CBS, which is revamping their news show after
Yeah.
the election, but they've been playing around with a few things along the way. I now realize looking back on it. Anyway, there was a story that started, it was about, I don't know, some legal document that had been filed. In most places, it would have begun with some line like, tonight, a legal challenge for blah, blah, blah. Instead, this reporter did what we used to do in the old days, which is she started her piece by saying, according to the complaint, comma, and she said it. I mean, it was like, I
Mhm.
thought I'd gone back 30 years.
That's the best. That's the best. I also, I love the show and tell that's happening more in live shots where maybe a tornado has gone in and we see the whole picture instead of just this reporter. But I just feel like a lot of reporters are getting more and more into like this grandstanding of just taking like it's like a 5 minute intro live shot. It's like get on with it. Get to the story for the love.
And every few months after a hurricane, somebody outs a reporter for walking in the water with waders on, only the water was really about a foot deep.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and somebody comes by in a boat, but then other people come by walking. And anyway,
Yeah.
so
I'm
much
the
for that.
same. I get on this my little soapbox of just like what happened to seeking the truth and what happened to storytelling and my husband's like just turn it off. Just turn it off. Yeah.
Well, until the past couple of weeks, I myself, not to get too deeply into politics, but
Mm.
clearly on the left of Trotsky, I was so depressed about what was
I know.
going on the
I
news that
know.
I was starting to watch less. I've been re-energized.
Yeah.
Let's put it.
I think a lot of people, I mean even the Republicans, I mean we've got there's some newness happening. There's an excitement and you can see it on the reporters' faces and the
You
anchors.
can.
They're like giddy almost because
But
there's so much happening.
you know what's interesting though, and a sports um, analyst, opinion guy, Colin Cowherd, who has a show
Hmm.
on FS1, and I like him. I find him interesting. He mentioned the other day that maybe to his surprise, he's been really digging the Olympics because he posited it's good, it's
Yeah.
happy,
It's
it's
happy.
fun.
Yeah.
Now, the corollary is Joe Biden chose to beat up Donald Trump quite legitimately, in my view, as a danger to democracy. So far, early in her campaign, Kamala has not chosen to do that.
Mm.
She's just telling happy stories and being happy and looking forward. And it's reminiscent of Barack Obama selling hope.
Yeah.
And, you know, politically, I'm not news anymore, so I can say this, I guess. I hope it works,
Hmm.
but that's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. You have to be right down the center. if you're still in news, but we're not still in news, so we can
Well,
say whatever the hell we want.
It's interesting. I went back to the news biz. It turned out to only be for 6 months, doing a project at a local station in Florida a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically had to break my thumbs because I decided that if I'm in the news business again, I can't post political stuff. And my Facebook feed is reflective of my views, and I had to stop. And the day that little experiment came to an end, I was back on Facebook. Then again, you can tell I'm old because I said Facebook, not TikTok.
Oh yeah, right. But with this news background of yours, I wrote this down because as you know, I was an anchor, I was a reporter, I was a producer. I say journalist, it kind of encapsulates all of it. But we are pitchers, right? As far as ideas go, we're always like, oh, we should do a story on this, or someone should do a feature on this. That's you, right? Like you had just, especially when you left the news, you were just pitching idea after idea after idea. Some fell flat, some worked, triple D, hello. But
most were never picked up, understand that.
Yeah.
I'm considered, I guess, mildly successful in the television show.
Yeah, you're okay. You're doing okay, David.
But the point is, I only sold a handful of shows over a number of years. I should have sold them. People should have. I've got a documentary in the works. I can't tell you about it.
Okay.
But I have been developing this for 7 years.
Woo.
It is on an incredibly important subject, and I can't sell it. I got close. The Obama's production company wanted to do it, but Netflix wouldn't take it, and that's where they send their stuff. So it's hard.
You're going to keep pushing for it though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I think that's the idea, right? That's the little message that I wanted to get from this question from you. You know, keep asking, right? Keep making that ask. Keep pitching.
All they
putting out
can do
ideas.
is say no.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't get hurt.
Right.
My wife, out of concern for my well-being when I started my production company and before I sold diners, would come into my office in the house many mornings and say to me, I can't believe you have the resilience to keep doing this. But that's built into the journalism background. I mean, especially the part of my career where I was an investigative journalist. People slam doors in your face all the time. It's your job to, I mean, the one time I didn't go through the door, I was doing a thing on bad private detectives in Houston. And I knocked on the door. We set up an office with a hidden camera and caught these guys pitching us for business, making all kinds of illegal proposals. But anyway, one guy said I'd bug the office. And I then said in the final piece, he said, I'd put the mic right up there in the air vent. And I said in the piece, well, that's where our mic was. But anyway, nice. So I'm knocking on this guy's door to, give him his chance. And he says, come on in. And just as I'm about to walk through the door, I hear him racking a shell into his shotgun. I did not go in.
Yeah, bye. Yeah.
See
you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Yeah, I get that a lot too. With doing a podcast, I reach out to a ton of people asking if they want to be a guest. I get a lot of radio silence and I get a lot of no's. And I have some friends who are like, oh, that must be hard. And I'm like, are you kidding? No. News days, I got to know every day, daily. I got to know.
What I find fascinating is you have to ask.
Have to.
I mean, so many people will say no. There are many famous chefs who have declined to be on the podcast, but many more who have quickly said yes. I got Drew Nieporent, the most famous restaurateur in the last 50 years. He's in business with Robert De Niro in Nobu and Tribeca Grill. And, it's funny how you connect with people. I ran into his brother somewhere. I don't know where, but we got chatting because I'm a chatty guy. And he gave me his business card. And he said, listen, if you ever want to, go to Tribeca or Nobu, give me a call. So what I did is I called him and I said, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with your brother, Drew. Okay, the big name. I'm in my car one day. My cell phone rings. It's Drew Nieporent. He said, sure, I'll do the podcast.
Love it.
I'm finishing up editing it now. My first guest is this chef has a Michelin star. And she has won the James Beard Award as Best Chef in America, Best Pastry Chef in America, and co-owner of the best restaurant in America, Nancy
I was
Silverton.
gonna guess. Is it
Oh,
Nancy?
sorry, I
It's
should have let you.
Nancy. It's
And
Nancy.
she, in fact, I'm just finishing putting her episode together, and she was a delight. And in fact, at the end of that, I mentioned another project, and she, if it comes to fruition, she'd be interested. So it cracks me up that there are some people who can be kind. Clearly I'm saying to people, I'm starting a new podcast and I need bookings.
Hmm.
On the other hand, these people are also smart and realize that good publicity is good publicity.
Right. I also think too, I pitch it sometimes as like, I want to share your story, right? I mean, that's why I reached out to you. I want to share your story because you have a lot of interesting things to say. And I don't know if the listener, like, maybe they need a chunk of that. You say something that really hits them in a way, and then they leave feeling different. And that to me is like, that's journalism, right? I mean, I think it's so important to tell stories.
Well, it is. I mean, and some of them are surprising. Nancy, for example, I said, how'd you first get involved in cooking? And I assumed it would be, I cooked as a child. My mother was a great cook. I used to help her out. No, she was in college, had no interest in cooking whatsoever. But she did have an interest in this guy in her dorm who was the cook at the cafeteria. They had a cafeteria in their dorm, and she wanted to go out with him. So she applied to him for a cooking job, which he gave her. They dated briefly. That didn't end up going anywhere, but she looks around one day and by the way, she's cooking at a cookbook. She has no knowledge. And she looks around and she says, maybe I should do this for a living. And then she goes to the Cordon Bleu in London, and then she goes to cooking school in Paris. And, now she is an absolute living legend.
The
So
goat.
the backstories, and that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast is,
Mhm.
when you interview for a certain reason, like if I interviewed someone for Diners, it was specifically about this restaurant and this dish. And yes, we could talk about background a little bit, but that's not the point of the show.
Right.
When I interviewed people for the book, again, you could include some backstory if it motivated the broader subject, but I was talking to chefs about kinds of food. The chapter on pizza, I talked to Chris Bianco, I talked to Tony Gemignani, but now I want to have the conversations that you have after a good dinner in Europe where they're not forcing you out to turn the table. And you can sit and savor the meal and the conversation and the espresso and the cognac and maybe two cognacs, maybe even three cognacs, and just shoot the bull.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations that I now want to have. It's a different phase, I guess, of it's still storytelling, but I find it fascinating.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite part of the meal is when everyone's done and we're just sitting around shooting the shit. I love it. The other thing about Nancy that I love so much is that when she started baking bread, and you know this story, she made like thousands of different recipes, tweaking the salt, tweaking the flour, tweaking the measurements because she wanted it perfect. It had to be perfect.
He points out there's one other reason she had to do that. There were no instructions for baking bread.
Right. Yeah.
She thought until she realized that she could do it here and that there were a few other people doing it here, she was of the belief that the only good bread was in France, or the only good bread she'd had was in France. I don't know what she thought about Spanish bread.
Right.
But her view was they have to go there for that. So when she came here, she found no real manual on how to do this. And she mentioned to me that she came up with 2% salt in the total dough, and that now is the standard. But she found that, as you say, by thousands of attempts at trial and error. Yeah.
And that's passion, right? That's being a professional, like doing things over and over and over again until you get it just perfect. But I love that story, and the idea of that she's baking bread for hours on end.
Hours, days. I mean, it went on
right.
forever. La Brea Bakery.
Right.
Which actually opened along with her restaurant Campanile, which she opened with her then husband. But the bakery was going to be to service the restaurant, but because of governmental regulation governing how you can open restaurants and such. It actually opened before the restaurant. Even though it was sort of an afterthought. They decided on Campanile, they got their space, then they looked at each other and said, what are we going to do for bread? So Campanile was the first of those two legendary establishments to open.
Yeah, she's an amazing, incredible chef, baker, and really changed the game for so many. So that kind of leads us into your new project, this podcast.
Yes.
Tell me about it. So wait, let's back up a little bit. I mean, I know you're an idea guy, but where'd this come from?
Midair.
Okay.
I was looking for something to do next.
Got it.
I like to reinvent myself. I mean, TV, you're whatever you were last. So I was a local reporter. Then I was an investigative reporter. Then I was a political guy for 10 minutes. Then I was an international reporter. Then I was a morning show. You roll through things. I started in radio, and I have a deep residual fondness for the ability to paint pictures with your words. And podcasting is radio. It is reinvented radio for a generation that requires instant gratification.
A little impatient.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for tomorrow at 6 a.m. to hear Don Imus. Okay, well, you're not going to hear him now because he's passed away. Although I will tell you, to entertain myself, I still listen to 60-year-old air checks of a WABC New York top 40 personality named Dan Ingram, who was the greatest 40 DJ in history and still makes me laugh. Anyway, so I've always liked this medium. I've seen it grow, and I started thinking, well, what's my next food project? And I was talking about writing another book. Frankly, the publisher didn't offer me enough money. It's half done, but if I ever do finish it, it won't be for that publisher, which is not the one who did my first book, but they sold to someone. Anyway, and I thought to myself, I want to talk to all these people I know in the business or people I don't know. And that's where the podcast came from. And what I decided to do was the key to this is I want to talk to people who are making a significant contribution to the culinary world. Some of them are legends, like Nancy Silverton, like Dan Barber of Blue Hill at Stone Farms.
Yeah.
It's like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. You can't get the name right. He was reinventing the way we eat and the way we grow food by making flavor the intended outcome, not just shippability. Those perfect round tomatoes fit really well into plastic containers, but they don't taste worth a damn.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm including legends, Drew Nieporn, for example, but I'm also including future legends, the people who are clearly breaking out, like a woman named Christina Wynn, who just won the 2024 James Beard Award as Best Chef in the Midwest. She's in Minneapolis. Now, her story's fascinating. Her parents are immigrants from Vietnam. Her first food venture was not Vietnamese. It was not Asian. She and her husband, neither of whom had any experience in the food business, decided one day to open a food truck in Minneapolis. And they were looking around for a food that they could do in a truck that might be unique and interesting. And it's my phone. Let's see, not important. And they arrived at arepas, which is that corn bread sandwich from Peru, Colombia, South and Central America. They opened an arepa truck, and it did fine. But winter in Minneapolis ain't food truck time.
No.
I lived there. We had a little horse farm. I remember going to clean horse stalls in a Michelin man suit when it was 30 below zero. That's before the wind chill. So no, you don't run a food truck in Minneapolis in the winter. So they took a backpacking trip to Southeast Asia, and it started her thinking about Southeast Asian food. They ended up opening in what had been a strip club, a kind of fusion Southeast Asian restaurant.
Classic.
Yes,
Love it.
There are some Vietnamese dishes, although not the best hits. Don't go there for pho. Don't go there for a banh mi. you'll get other stuff there that you might not know,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get similar items from Thailand, Indonesia, various places around Southeast Asia. And as I say, she just won a James Beard Award for that, and she's clearly an up-and-coming star. But there's also a third category. People who will never be famous, but make damn good food and
Oh,
care deeply about it.
love
Mom
it.
and pop independent restaurants like Greg and Carrie Erisman, who own a restaurant, well, a burger joint in West Lafayette, Indiana, down the road from Purdue University. The place has been there for 100 some odd years. They took it over about 30 years ago. Their signature burger is a peanut butter burger.
Mm.
Like it or hate it, just remember peanut butter is a savory flavor, and there's an awful lot of Thai food that you like that is peanut flavored. So don't dismiss it out of hand. If you don't like that, they got plenty of other burgers. Um, but they're incredible. They care so deeply about what they're doing. He insists on grinding the meat himself out of a cut of steak. They stayed open during the pandemic. They closed for about 6 weeks, then they reopened. They've done everything possible to be an important part of their community that people come back to and that kids come back to having been initially brought by their parents. Um, they're just wonderful folks. And, they tell a funny story. The name of their restaurant is the Triple X Family Restaurant. Because 100 years ago, Triple X indicated top quality. You would see it like on the outside of a flower,
Okay.
or on the outside of a sugar bag. But when they took the restaurant over, Greg says they were getting phone calls from people asking, are your employees topless? And what time does the movie begin?
Right. Do you
And
have porn?
well, basically that was it. They were
Yeah.
being taken for a porn
Well,
purveyor. So
yeah.
they added family restaurant to the name. Now they could have gone another way. They could have added porn to the menu, but they chose not to.
That's a whole different podcast.
It's a different. It's funny when I lived in Frankfurt, Germany, um, there was in the Frankfurt airport a porn theater
Mhm.
for people on layover.
I mean,
So it has been a successful business for quite a while.
well, wasn't there a few years ago, I think here in my town, like topless coffee drive-through stands?
Yeah, everyone's tried that.
I mean, hey, to each their own. I am
Yeah,
not
but I'm telling you, for the servers, that's hot coffee. I'd be careful.
right. Yeah, protect yourself, ladies.
Yeah,
Protect
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
What do you think it is? Because I know you're drawn to, small, the chefs, the big name chefs. Yes, there's a fascination of its own there, but you're also really drawn to the family run business, the mom and pop, the little guy on the corner who just is cranking out quality food. You are drawn to those stories.
Yeah, because those are the best stories. Those are, look, you mentioned passion earlier. You got to be passionate to be in the food business.
100%.
Has the lowest profit margin of anything, probably the highest bankruptcy rate of any business, and it is physically taxing beyond belief. So you really gotta want to do this, not for the money. I mean, yes, you should make a living, but what drives people who are successful in the food business is a deep desire to please others, and usually fascinating stories. And look, I've been a journalist for more than 50 years now. And I've always been drawn to storytelling. I mean, when I was with NBC News and uh, things were coming to a head with the end of communism in Eastern Europe, I was looking for a story that would encapsulate what it's like to live in Berlin divided by the wall. So I got up one day with a translator because I don't speak German. As a friend of mine once said, he hated listening to the news in Germany because you had to wait till the end of the story to find out if the guy was arrested or got elected, the verbs. Anyway, so me and my translator, my correspondent, who shall remain nameless, he's a dear friend of mine, was the best man at my wedding. He was dramatically hungover that morning.
Oh,
so
boy.
we let him sleep. And my translator and I crossed into East Berlin. And looked for apartment buildings that abutted the inner Berlin Wall. There were actually, the wall you saw from the west was not the ultimate wall. There was a secondary wall inside it. Anyway, these apartment buildings abutted that wall. And we went knocking on doors looking for a story to tell about life in the shadow of the wall. And we found this family that was willing to take part. And we went out back with their kids who were playing soccer by bouncing the ball off the Berlin Wall.
Wow.
And they were hoping that things were going to change. When things changed, we went back and told the story of a changed East Berlin with that same family, only now the wall was gone. There were pillars left, but there was no wall.
Mm-hmm.
And now the ball would go through the wall, and little Stevie Lukowski would run into what had been West German territory to get his soccer ball back.
Wow.
Those microcosms of human experience are absolutely, I mean, and they were great. I mean, the points we could make off that microcosm, they had been a little surprised that their relatives in the West were leery of them, afraid they were going to come for a handout. Mm-hmm. And the whole unified German system was treating them as if everyone in the West was from California or New York and they were from Mississippi. Mm. So it was a fascinating story. Again, found in a personal microcosm.
Right.
I love those tales.
I think also it's important to ask the right questions, right? I know you've probably dealt with a bazillion reporters who they come back from, grabbing their story, and it's like, did you ask them where they're from? Like, did you ask like how long they'd been doing this and where they learned the craft? Like, did you missed the whole story. You missed the point.
Yeah, but even better than the direct question is having the guts to seem stupid.
David, 100%. Yes.
Okay. I mean, I had a formative experience when I was, I don't know, 19 or 20, working at a TV station in Wichita, Kansas. And I covered a city government meeting, a city council. Came back to the office and wrote up a story about changes to the Section 8 housing program, and which is a low-income housing program subsidized by the government, I think the federal government. And I wrote the story, and my news director looked at me and said, "What's Section 8 housing?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I don't know." He said, "We can't write this story unless you know."
Yeah, dummy.
But beyond that, as a producer, producers try not to have their questions on the air. And I've grimaced when I've seen other producers say, "Could you say it this way?" My solution was just to be stupid and to say to them, "The thing with the car and the what's going on with that?"
Yep.
And then they take pity on you when you get a complete full answer.
Right.
But if you try to seem smart, what's the damn point?
Well, if you know everything, why are you doing a story on it? If you already know everything about it, absolutely. I would tell.
By the way, I am continuously being surprised in that way. Based on my public persona, you could assume that I know a lot about food. And yeah, I know a lot about food after all these years, but there's plenty I don't know.
Right.
And when I was talking to Nancy, we were talking about burrata, that mozzarella variant that is filled with cream or milk. And she explained to me that it originated as a waste product, that it was something to do with the bits of cheese that were discarded while you were making mozzarella. And she explained to me that ricotta was the same thing. It came from discarded parts of, was it whey?
I think it's the whey. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it is. I didn't know that. I learned that. Now, the shame is I'm not fond of burrata because it's too milky for me, but hey, it's a happening thing.
I mean, first of all, it's okay to say I don't know, right? Second of all, hallelujah for the byproducts.
Well, but that goes so far with so much food. Much of the greatest food on earth is the food of the poor, because without access to the stuff that was great on its own, in terms of proteins especially, people had to come up with strategies to use inner organs and fat,
Right. Yeah.
leftover crap. I mean, I'm one of the few Americans who happens to like haggis,
Okay.
which is that
Yeah.
that Scottish dish in a pig's bladder, which is a combination of fat and innards and oatmeal. There is an Ashkenazi Jewish equivalent called kishka, which is a combination of fat and grains
Hmm.
in a stuffed derma. It's called in a deli. These are foods that nobody with money would eat, but it was all that was available.
Right.
And it was the highest calorie count for the buck, which you would eat before going out to plow the fields for 6 hours.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Burritos. Before the workers would go out, the moms and grandmas would take a tortilla because it would fit beans and rice, fold it up. Here you go.
Well, it's like, look, the food of the worker in every culture. West Virginia is famous. Well, famous. Okay. West Virginia is well known for pepperoni rolls,
Yeah.
which are pieces of sausage. It looks like it's in a Pillsbury Doughboy kind of, but it, originally was made at home. That was something a coal miner could put in his pocket.
Right.
There you go.
My former news director, I'm going to give him a little shout out because he is all about the pizza rolls or pepperoni rolls.
These are called pepperoni rolls, but there are pizza rolls. There are variations.
Yeah, but he would get, I think he had family that would ship them to him in Oregon. And he's like, the pepper. Yeah. So Chad, that's for you. That story's for you, Chad. Whenever you say, you said haggis, and my mind immediately goes to So I Married an Axe Murderer, the movie with Mike Myers.
I never saw it.
Okay. David
Did they
Page.
eat haggis?
So his dad is Scottish and he goes to the butcher and he gets haggis and he takes it home. You've got to watch. There's a scene. You've got to watch it. You will love it. But yeah.
Well, when I was living in London and I was on the beat, I regularly covered the violence in Northern Ireland. I used to fly from Gatwick Airport to Belfast on a 6 a.m. flight.
Okay.
And back then, remember when airlines served food?
Vaguely. Yeah, it's distant memory.
This was a regional carrier. I cannot remember if it was a Scottish carrier or a Northern Irish carrier, but their regular breakfast was haggis.
No.
And I loved it. Yes, I loved it. It was phenomenal.
But the plane, you're trapped.
Well, if you're sitting next to me, I'll eat yours. That's fine. How different is that from any breakfast meat? Come on. I live 90 miles from Philadelphia. Scrapple?
Good point.
What the hell is it, scrapple? Nobody knows.
I mean, I'm from South Carolina, so we cooked up fatback. You know what fatback is, right?
Yeah, and it is the cheapest leftover from
bacon, right?
Actually from bacon? Yeah. I mean, it was from a cut anyway. But yes, I remember doing a story in South Carolina, in Gaffney, South Carolina, in the first year of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dimes. And one of their specialties, they had fatback on the menu.
Yeah. My great-grandma would, it would be fatback with collards and homemade biscuits. And I was never a fan of the fat. It was too crunchy for me. It was too crispy because
Fatback's fantastic. It's nothing but fat. Fat is flavor. It was the best.
I agree 100%.
As the non-kosher New York Jew.
Right.
I mean,
yep. Yeah. We were talking about byproducts for a second. Just on vacation with my family in South Carolina, and we put on a pot of beans one night, and my sweet little cousin, we had leftovers, and she said, "Don't throw away the bean juice because we're going to make cornbread sometime this week, and I need the beans with the bean juice." And I said, "Amen, sister, you got it." And we had a sack of beans and bean juice for that damn cornbread.
Well, but see, over the last, I don't know, since the 50s or 60s or 70s, we are such a food wasteful society.
Oh, God, 100%.
The amount of stuff that we throw out and the amount of stuff we don't repurpose.
Yeah.
I mean, you make a chicken today, eat it, you have a carcass left. You have to make chicken soup. How do you not?
Right.
Or make a Cobb salad the next day,
Mhm.
use the chicken. We do not repurpose properly.
I agree. We're so wasteful, so wasteful. And I think what hurts me the most too is when my husband says this to me all the time, like, this animal died for us to have
Us.
food, and for us not to eat all of it or 98% of it is just cruel. It's not okay.
And we as a culture won't eat offal. We will not eat inner body parts.
Right.
Rest of the world does.
Right.
And it would be fabulous. When I was writing the book, I was taken to a large food hall in Queens that the patrons were almost exclusively Chinese immigrants who recently arrived. And they served food as you would get it in China. And there was a dish called dry pot. It's not hot pot, it's dry pot, which was a spicy combo. You could order the different things you wanted in it. And among the options that I tried were tendon,
Mm.
which I had never had before, artery, in my soup. Along with my soup, I had a congealed patty of duck blood, which reminded me of liverwurst.
Okay.
It, it's all great. And again, to items that are not necessarily inherently full of flavor, that's where the cooking skill comes in with sauces and flavorings and techniques.
Hmm.
And we're one of the few cultures that doesn't prize a variety of textures, especially in China. Many textures that we don't like, gelatinous
Right.
or sort of crunchy, but not really. Those are prized. You want a variety of textures. I mean, I was in Hong Kong with my family for the Olympics that were held in Beijing. The equestrian games were held in Hong Kong. We went there because my daughter, not at Olympic level, but she was a damn good equestrian in high school. Anyway, so we went for the games in Hong Kong, and I really wanted to go to a local restaurant. And I convinced the concierge at the hotel that I was serious about this because, he was going to send me to a tourist joint. And we talked for
Right.
quite some time. Sent us to a place. It was downstairs. So we go down the stairs, open the door into this cacophonous space filled with communal tables. Best I could tell, we were the only non-Asian family there.
Good sign.
And we
That's a good
damn
sign.
good sign. Made our way to a table, and the utensils were brought over with a bowl of tepid water because you were supposed to clean your spoons in the tepid water. So anyway, um, and it's dim sum, so people are coming around with baskets and we're ordering, and no one's talking to us, and that's great. We're having a good time. Finally, I point to a particular basket, and from behind me and to the right, an elderly gentleman pipes up, and I'm going to say exactly what he said. That not for you.
Ooh,
Well, thank you, sir, for protecting me as an American from some dish that you think I'm going to hate, but now I got to know what it is.
of course.
Turned out to be duck foot.
Okay.
A lot of flavor, not my favorite texture, but damn, I ate it just to prove I had.
Hell yeah. You had to at that point. I'll show
It was,
you.
yeah.
I'll
So I
eat
had
some.
my duck foot.
Have my
Uh,
duck foot.
it was fine.
Um, there's a fella, if you watch Chef's Table, he's an Italian
Mhm.
butcher, Dario. I can't remember his last name, but that's his thing, is to use all the parts of the cow, because it was important to him. But really, he learned it from family. I think his grandmother. That was the food that he grew up with. But he had this very deep, heartfelt connection with his cows. And he said to butcher a cow and not use all of the parts is wrong. And
Well, it's
I love that.
and remember, depending upon where he came from in Italy, for a long time, there was a lot of poverty in
Mm.
various parts of Italy. For example, Tuscany, where today we understand they do a lot of things with wild boar, especially wild boar ragu, which is
Right. Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But that began because most of the people living there were so poor that if they didn't shoot it, they weren't going to eat.
Right.
And if you think they were going to throw out any part of that animal, you're crazy.
No.
We were doing I don't recall what show this was for, but we were shooting Oh, I know. I briefly did a show on the Food Network called Outrageous Food, and we were shooting at a nose to tail place
Mm-hmm.
where they intentionally used all parts of the
Mm-hmm.
animal. And one of the dishes on the menu was called pig face,
Okay.
where they literally took the
Yeah.
face of a pig,
Yeah.
kind of wrapped it around, the snout was sticking out. And remember, the tastiest meat on a pig is the jowls. Um, and I said to the guy, or the host I was producing, said to the guy, well, most Americans won't eat this. And he said, well, then they don't know what's in their sausage.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. The butcher I was just telling you about, he was from Tuscany, or he is from Tuscany. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's a local chef here who is a James Beard nominee.
Mhm.
And he talks a lot about how he wants his food to be a little uncomfortable. He wants the diner to be a little uncomfortable and kind of do like, what are we eating? What is this? He wants the textures to be kind of weird. He says that because it's like just to sit and hork down a hot dog, which I will do any day of the week, not going to say anything about that, but he wants there to be an experience with his food. And I love that.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, look, we as a country have got to broaden our tastes.
Yes, please.
We really do. And nothing drives me nuttier than when I mention a food item and someone goes, "Oh, I'd never eat that."
Right?
And my answer is, "Have you ever tried it?"
Right?
My rule with my daughter has always been one bite. If you don't like it after you taste it, fine.
That's our rule in this house.
I,
One bite.
yeah, well, I can't exercise control anymore. She's 31. But um, and unfortunately, she was raised in a way that on her either 16th or 18th birthday, I said, we'll take you to dinner. Where do you want to go? And she mentioned Wiley Dufresne's WD-50 Temple of Molecular Gastronomy. So be careful what you teach them.
Yes. Yes. That's the rule. That's the rule here. And it's also, if you don't like it, our rule is don't make a face. Don't say, ooh, that's gross. Just be polite and say, I don't care for that, but thank you for, letting me taste it or whatever. But yeah, one taste
Absolutely.
drives me crazy when
Absolutely.
people are like, ugh, I would never eat that. And it's like,
Well,
ugh.
there's a corollary. I lived in Minnesota for 10 years. And God love them, so many Minnesotans said to me, Minnesota's the greatest place on earth. And I would say, how about New York? And they say, oh, God, I'd never go there. And I said, well, have you ever been there? No. Where else have you been? Nowhere.
Nowhere.
Tell you what, go a few places, and then if you think Minnesota is the greatest place on earth and you have a great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to beat you up for living in that frigid wasteland. What did that come out of my mouth? Well,
We'll bleep. I'll
yeah,
insert the.
yeah, it'll sound worse because it starts with an F.
I love it. I do want to wrap up a little bit, but I have to
Sure.
talk to you about food trends on social media right now because David Page, they're driving me a little crazy. It's this idea that there's the chopped salad, for instance, or chopped sandwich. I'm sorry. You have all the
Uh-huh.
Italian meats and the lettuce and all the things, and they chop it up to like a mush, a paste, and put it in bread. But then everybody's got to do it. Everybody has to have their own variation, and they all want to put it on Instagram. And I just want to go, stop, guys. I appreciate people are getting in their kitchens and cooking. That makes me happy. But on the other
Mhm.
hand, I'm like, we're trying to be a little cuckoo crazy with it. And it's just like, I want to get back to basics for a little bit.
Well, look, so much of all the coverage of food is ridiculously amped up. I
Mm-hmm.
did a pilot for a network that will remain unnamed that was called Hungry Men at Work. The premise was that, because it's true, one of the incentives big companies use to get workers to outrageous work sites like fracking or mining
Yeah.
in out of the way locations is to promise and provide excellent food.
Okay.
So we went to a fracking site. I'm leaving the politics about fracking out of this. We went to a fracking site in North Dakota where it was 30 below zero and it was windy. And they would have a weekend barbecue where the chefs, classically trained, would actually grill outside in 30 below weather. It
Wow.
was unbelievable. Great stuff. Great stuff. The network insisted that we add stakes. There's got to be something at risk. Why? And I have never,
What?
I have never intentionally lied on television, but for the purposes of this pilot, they made us add a ridiculous element. I would not have done it if they picked the show up. I mean, it wouldn't have gone there. But we actually created this bullshit where my host had to get into a helicopter and fly to someplace an hour away to pick up the food for the weekend barbecue. And then he had trouble driving back. It was icy. Were they going to make it in time? What horse shit.
Oh, God.
You know, just
I
how
roll.
about it? Yeah, I had a great show going. And they spent $500,000 on this friggin' pilot.
Yeah.
They kept telling me to add more stuff, add more cameras.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So this whole look at the wacky food I can make. No, thank you. But I'm not even a fan. I'm a Jewish deli lover. Okay. I'm Jewish and I'm a deli lover and I'm a lover of Jewish delis as well as Italian deli. But let's talk Jewish delis for a moment.
Please.
This trend, and I'll name a place that's a good deli here in New Jersey where I live, Harold's in Edison. They're known for sandwiches this tall.
Right.
That's stupid. You can't eat
You can't.
that sandwich at that size, but it's a gimmick. Now, you ask for more bread, make 2 more sandwiches, or you take the excess home. But it's like what's happening to lobster rolls these days.
Please.
Lobster rolls have become massive. There's all this lobster, and I love lobster. Give me as much as you want, but not in a lobster roll, because a lobster roll requires a balance. It requires the right amount of sweet lobster balanced against the crunch of a butter grilled split top roll and the taste of that butter. If you've got too much lobster, now you're not getting the proper taste combination. But
Right.
we're so into portion size. It's just
I wrote down lobster roll. I literally wrote down lobster roll because I've been seeing that too, a trend. And they're huge. They're long. They feed. It's just like, come on, guys.
What's the point?
I get
What's the point?
Yeah. The
by
watermelon
the way-
burger. Have you seen the watermelon burger? It's
No.
they use watermelon chunks as like the bread of the sandwich. Yes.
Look, if you like that, knock yourself out. I don't see a reason for it.
I think that's just it. If you like it, go for it. What irks me is that everybody has to then hop on this train of outdoing, and it's like, let's just get back to basics, kids. Come on.
I'd like people to enjoy and appreciate their food. And so much of this has nothing to do with the food.
Exactly.
I mean,
Thank you. You just said it. Thank you.
The best deli I ever went to was not Katz's, which is very good and which doesn't, I mean, the sandwich is big, but it's not stupid.
Not huge, yeah.
But the best deli I've been to was in the last, 6 or 8 months. Saw my friend in Michigan. He lives in Ann Arbor. We went to Zingerman's, which is an extraordinary deli. But what made Zingerman's, and their sandwich is fine. It's, it's a good size, but it's not stupid. What made Zingerman's better, in my opinion, than Katz's is, while Katz's pastrami might be a tiny percentage better, Zingerman's makes their own bread. Katz's acknowledges, the owner of Katz's has acknowledged in the past, he uses what he thinks is an inferior bread to reach a price point. Zingerman's makes their bread in their bakery, and it's just extraordinary.
It's divine, yeah. It's just was that a sneeze or a cough?
A little of both somehow.
Okay, well, bless you then.
Thank you.
I feel like, and I'm not even going to say anything about the videos that I see where you have, they're throwing chicken in a crock pot with a ranch packet and pre-shredded cheese. And I mean, here's the thing. I won't eat it, but again, I appreciate that you're doing something in your kitchen to feed your family. I understand that, but I just don't want to see it on Instagram anymore. It's just, it's just yuck.
Well, and that also gets you into something else. You said a packet of ranch. I just have had it with these companies selling food prep kits.
Yeah.
Do you really need the pepper in a pre-measured cellophane? You're, I mean, let me tell you how to cook. You take a chicken, you put it in a pan, salt, pepper, garlic, little stock to keep it moist,
Yep.
put it in a 500-degree oven, take it out in 40 minutes. Your prep time, your prep time was 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
quicker than a meal kit.
Yeah. No, I hear you, but it's just, I hope, I appreciate people cooking and it being interested in food, and especially being interested where their food comes from. That's huge for me, but I could do without some of the trends, all of the trends. It's just getting a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs right now.
By the way, I'm not a fanatic. You want to have some junk? Have some junk. Don't live on it.
Yeah.
I successfully fought a diabetes challenge in the last year, and my endocrinologist, we were talking the other day because my numbers are great, and she said, you can cheat. I said, what do you mean? She said, your numbers are not diabetic, and as long as we keep you controlled, if you want that cannoli once a week, have that cannoli. I'll tell you what I did the other day. I don't know, I had a bad day or something. I had a double cheeseburger from McDonald's with a medium order of fries.
Okay.
620 calories. It was not necessarily great for me, but it was beef. It was a bun. I didn't die. And I satisfied my craving.
That's it.
And the next night, I was back to cooking good food in my kitchen.
Yeah.
You don't have to be nuts. It doesn't have to be organic. Is it better if it's local? Yes.
Yeah.
Why? Because it tastes better.
Mm-hmm.
On the
and you're supporting your neighbors,
which is very important, and you're not contributing to the transport,
right,
which creates carbon. I was talking to Dan Barber, the legendary chef, who was explaining to me that his focus now is flavor, that he believes deeply in local produce and local animals, because raised where they should be raised, and often next to other crops that help enhance the soil, the combination of the 2 or 3 crops, so you don't have to use fertilizer. And you can use seeds that are not produced by Monsanto or the other 3 chemical companies. He said that produces flavor.
Yeah.
It tastes better. I mean, I live in New Jersey, where Jersey tomatoes may be the best in the world, certainly outside of Italy. And they're uglier than sin because round tomatoes are bred to fit into packaging.
Right.
Jersey tomatoes are bred to taste good.
I want the ugly maters too, because you slice into those bad boys. Ugh.
But see, that's another example where not every food has to be the apex. Right. I believe that you're from South Carolina, a tomato and Duke's mayo sandwich has to go on white bread.
I have it right.
I have
a picture of it right there.
Perfect. There is no excuse for any other bread. Now, white bread has no nutrients. White bread is empty calories, but that's what that food way grew up to be. That's why pork barbecue in much of the South comes served on white bread. It's just what's always been done, and that's now part of the dish.
Yep.
I made a sandwich the other day, and I upscaled the bread, and it was a mistake. I don't remember what I made. What bad idea.
Don't you hate that first bite, and you're like, damn it.
This was supposed to be good, yeah.
What was I thinking? Well, I did want to comment. You look fantastic.
Well, I had to save my life, but thank you. I lost a lot of weight.
Well, I was gonna say I'm glad you saved your life. You look fantastic, and I'm happier that you're healthier, right? And I'm sure you feel probably fantastic.
I feel so much better.
Good.
And let me put in a plug for something.
Sure.
This was prescribed to me because of my diabetes, but obviously played a large part in helping my willpower for weight loss. I'm on Ozempic.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear so many people criticizing people who use Ozempic for some reason. Hey, if you broke your leg, wouldn't you get a cast?
Yeah.
For the better part of nearly 70 years now, I'll be 70 in November, for the majority of all of those years, I have fought a losing battle against weight.
Yeah.
This chemical compound can help me be healthy. More power to it.
I agree. I agree. Just be healthy, get healthy, and however you have
And
to
by
do
the
that.
way, I'm old enough that if there is an unintended side effect, I'll probably be dead before it kicks. If my left leg's going to fall off, I'll probably be gone.
Oh, you're so much fun. We're gonna wrap up. We're gonna revisit the final three because it's been a while since I asked you these.
Please.
Final three, best advice you've ever been given, David Page.
Well, I hate to repeat myself, but don't give up.
That's it. I love it.
That's it.
I mean, well, that's your life has shown that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And by the way, folks, when I tell you not to give up, sometimes it ain't easy.
Right.
It's but it's the only way. It's the only way to keep moving forward.
You heard a lot of no's over the years, but the yeses have proven to benefit you. So don't give up.
Damn straight.
Damn straight. What's your happy place, sir?
My happy place. Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That is my new happy. Actually, no. We moved since you and I last chatted. We were on Long Beach Island. We moved to the mainland on the bay, in a wonderful house with a deck on the water, and which makes Manahawkin, New Jersey, my happy place when I'm not at Zingerman's.
Okay, what do you get at the deli when you go?
Oh, pastrami on rye. Yeah, occasionally I'll do a Reuben, but the real look, it's pastrami. I went once when the Stage Deli, I don't know if I went to the Stage or the Carnegie, they were next door to each other on Broadway. I brought a friend of mine who was, and I say this lovingly, he still is, the waspiest wasp the Midwest ever produced. Okay? And he literally was about to order pastrami with mayo.
Oh, no.
And I told him, Sean, if you do that, I will, by law, you're in New York, I'll have to kill you. And he's gotten more adventurous. He lives in Portugal now.
Okay. So I don't know all the rules. Forgive me. It's pastrami on rye.
With
nothing mustard.
Hot deli mustard.
Okay.
Yeah. And all these delis have these combination sandwiches they're famous for. 2 pounds of tongue, which is not a dish you're going to get a whole lot of non-Jews to eat, but because it tastes back while you're tasting it. But there's all these combinations and Russian dressing and the number 9 at Langer's.
Yeah.
Screw it. I want pastrami on rye with deli mustard.
Deli mustard. Pickle on the side?
And a knish.
Oh, a knish. Of course.
Gotta have a knish.
Of course. A pickle? Pickle?
Oh, yeah. And also a sour tomato, a sour green tomato, something that's on the table at any legit Jewish deli in New York.
Okay, I did not know that.
It's a pickled tomato. And I'm not sure if they're picked early because they are quite crunchy, but they're fantastic. Just fantastic. Go to Katz's website, order yourself a pickled tomato.
Okay.
If you don't like it, I'll pay for it.
Okay. I've been to Carnegie and I had pastrami on rye. I was very young, but I think I knew way back then, just get the pastrami on rye. Don't mess with it.
I loved the Carnegie. In some respects, I loved both it and the Stage back to back, even more than I loved Katz's.
Yeah.
And they're both gone. I think there is a vestige of one of them still selling stuff online or in Vegas or something, but the originals are unfortunately gone.
Okay. Well, thank you for my pastrami on rye lesson. I appreciate that.
Well, listen, if you don't like the tomato, it's on me.
Okay.
I gotta tell you, it's so nice to chat with you. Thank you for having me back.
Well, hey, I have one more question for you.
Please.
It may be part of your happy place. In all things food and drink, what do you crave, sir? What always sounds good?
What always? Oh, God, I'm such a New York Jew. Bagels, lox, and cream cheese. Only it ain't truly lox, which is too salty for my favorite bagel, which is an everything bagel. So it's generally Gaspé Nova. But yeah, bagels, lox, and cream cheese from Russ and Daughters on the Lower East.
I had here they do really good lox, cream cheese, and he overnights his bagels from New York. He says a pumpernickel bagel.
Not bad. Well, see, I would do pumpernickel with belly lox, which is salty.
Okay.
I can't do belly locks on an everything because there's too much salt. Although you understand that cream cheese became a staple because early on there was only belly locks, and it's the cream cheese that would cut the salt.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
But hey, in the Pacific Northwest, you guys actually have salmon, so
We
you
have
can good
legit
for real.
salmon out here in the
Sure
Pacific
do.
Northwest. And that wraps up the podcast with two food nerds talking about
All
all the
right,
things that they love with food.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. I am so excited for this podcast. Where can people listen to it? Everywhere?
Anywhere. It'll have its own website, culinary charactersunlocked.com, which is up. But it's on all the platforms. YouTube,
Okay.
Apple, Odyssey, everywhere. You can get it in video. You can get it audio only. Hell, I'll walk it to your house if you want.
Culinary Characters on
Unlocked.
Unlocked. Okay, Unlocked. I love it. I love the title. I love everything. You know, I love a good story. I love a good interview, so I'm super excited to listen. I will subscribe to you, sir. We will support
Thank
each
you.
other through our food interviews.
Absolutely.
So good to see you. You look fantastic, and I'm so excited we got a chance to catch up.
Appreciate it very much.
You've been listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma with me, Trish Close. You can watch this podcast and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Just search Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma. You can also listen and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.